Hi, I'm Peter from Coffee Parts, and today we're looking at pumps and how they fit the anatomy of a coffee machine. So pumps, what are they? The obvious answer is they pump water. But there's two different styles of pumps, well actually three, two that we have here and the third we'll talk about. We've got the vibrating pumps, we've got the rotary pumps, and we have that's not shown here, the geared pumps. The differences between these are the vibrating pumps, like you see in this rocket, in this case an OLAB sitting here, the one we have here is actually an Orca. Sorry. So I'll start again, I'll just go from what we have here. Now, the vibrating pump tends to be on domestic coffee machines, like this rocket appartamento we have here. The rocket's using an OLAB pump. Over here we have an Orca, but there's other brands that make them like Fluidotec, etc. Now what these vibrating pumps are, you can imagine a coil inside and a piston with a spring. As the coil gets current and releases current, the spring compresses and releases and it pulsates the water through. They tend to be like a little bit louder. They pulsate the water through, getting a little bit more pitting in the coffee, and you can't actually control the pump directly, so you tend to put a bypass valve. So the pump runs at one pressure, and then depending on how much water you're bypassing back to the water reservoir, depends on the final pressure you get. But a great solution, small, and really used on, I guess, machines if you're gonna look at an Australian price point up to about $3,000. Then you have the rotary pump. Now the rotary pump is what the majority of commercial coffee machines use, or the higher end home coffee machines. And these pumps are actually controlled by a motor. The motor, generally made by a company called RPM, basically turns this shaft. As this shaft turns, there's an impeller here, and as that pushes, it gets the water from in to out and pushes it. You can control the pressure of the pump by adjusting the side dial here, and it basically reduces or expands the outlet, and then you control your pump pressure. Very stable, and what a pump does is moves pressure from A to B. So on a rotary pump machine, commercially they're plumbed in, domestically they might either be running a reservoir plumbed in. If a reservoir moves the water from zero pressure in your reservoir to generally around 8 to 9 bars, whatever you've set it up. If you've plumbed in that machine, more than likely you got mains pressure, and to keep that consistent, you might use a pressure limiting valve or PLV to 3.5 bars. So the pump is doing the rest from 3.5 bars to 9. And that's when many machines have a function called pre-infusion, where effectively you're opening the group head, whether a manual lever or opening a solenoid, but not activating the pump, allowing 3.5 bars through to pre-infuse your coffee, and then activating the pump or flicking that switch and activating the solenoid to then activate the pump and get it to 8 or 9 bars, whatever you've adjusted it to. So these pumps are a lot quieter and a lot more consistent for coffee. Now the third pump is the geared pump, and you tend to see these on machines like the Slayer, Rocket R91, some Mazorcas like the Strata, etc. And what these are is they're controlled based on current. The more current you give the pump, the more the pump pumps. And what that effectively allows you to do is pressure profile. So you can control for how long at what pressure you want to come out of your coffee. So you can go 2 seconds at 2 bars, another 5 seconds at 3 bars, then go, X amount of seconds at 9 bars, ramp it down. You can control the curve. So a normal curve would be start slow, ramp it up, and then ramp it down to emulate the old lever machines. But some people have different perspectives on what their profile is, and they will adjust it in the way they want. So the 3 pump styles, being vibrating, rotary, and geared, all basically move water from one pressure to the next. And now the difference between them becomes just really the kind of coffee you're looking for. In the most case, in home environments, people tend to have vibrating pump machines. Those that want a quieter machine, more focused on espresso, bit better quality and the ability to plumb in, will go for rotary pump machines. And then geared pumps tend to be that really top end of the specialty world, where then every variable matters. People are using scales to weigh in, to weigh out. They're using refractometers to test their TDS, and it's a whole new ball game. What pumps are doing, moving water from one pressure to the next. And like everything in coffee, your grind, your weight of grind, your water temperature and your pump are the variables that make the biggest difference on your espresso. So when you need to replace your pump, with vibrating pumps, eventually the coils burn out and die down. So these are items that are non-serviceable but replaceable, and you'll tend to replace them. Like, it's always hard to give a timeline. It really depends on, you know, things like, have you backflushed for too long? And these burn out if water isn't constantly flowing from them. So if you really push that pump by backflushing for too long or grinding too fine and really push that pump and reduce its lifespan. But generally on normal use case environments for home, probably around the 5-year mark. Like everything, scale and abusing the pumps will reduce their lifespan. Some people that don't use their machine much might get a little bit longer in lifespan. With the rotary pumps, they're not bulletproof, but almost bulletproof. With time, the bearings in here do sometimes seize up, and especially if you're not using the machine very often, and that puts more pressure on the motor, and eventually they go. Domestically, this doesn't happen very often. They tend to last a long time. Commercially, like, really depends. Some cafes are doing 5 kilos a week, some are doing 200 kilos a week. So it really depends on the use case. And on geared pumps, then they tend to be not in really high volume cafes. So because it's such a specialty unit, they tend not to be like machines that are consistently under pressure, so they do tend to last a while. Sometimes in the older geared pumps, the seals did leak, but now that they're one enclosed unit, they are lasting a lot longer. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you've got any questions on these pumps, any issues you're having with your pump, or what kind of pump style machine is best for you, hit us up on the comments below and we'll get back to you. Like always, if you've enjoyed these reviews, hit the thumbs up, subscribe. It helps us and it helps us bring you better content. Thank you.